Have you ever heard of the great symbolic and spiritual implications of salt? And do you know how salt can help you on your spiritual journey and find inner peace? In an ancient Japanese temple, among the green hills of Kyoto, the elderly and wise monk Kimi will reveal to his pilgrims an ancient ritual linked to salt. A simple but powerful ritual passed down from generation to generation, which has the power to transform pain into strength, fear into courage, and anger into compassion. So, stay until the end of the video and find out what happens if you put salt in a bowl and put this ancient ritual into practice. Thanks to the story of Hana, a woman who found healing and rebirth thanks to the power of salt, you will understand the importance of the ritual that we suggest you try. And you will understand how salt, such a common yet so precious element, can become a powerful ally in your personal growth journey. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to be informed when we publish new content for your spiritual growth and inner peace. The morning summer sun glimmered on the tiles of Kiyomizu-dera Temple, a jewel of wood and spirituality nestled among the green hills of Kyoto. A group of pilgrims who had come from every corner of Japan had gathered in the temple garden, eager to listen to the teachings of the venerable Buddhist monk Kimi. Kimi, with his 80 years of grace and wisdom, was a figure loved and respected by all. His eyes, as deep as ancient wells, seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. And his voice, although hoarse due to age, was capable of moving and touching the most intimate strings of the soul. "Welcome, dear pilgrims," Kimi began, sitting on a meditation cushion beneath a red-leaved Japanese maple. "Today I will tell you the story of Hana, a woman who found peace in the heart of her sadness and embarked on a profound spiritual journey that led her to find enlightenment." The pilgrims, sitting cross-legged on the cool grass, listened attentively to the words of their beloved mentor. Among them was Akiko, a young woman with a pale face and eyes swollen with tears. "Master Kimi," she said in a trembling voice, "I recently lost my husband. The pain is unbearable. How can I find the strength to carry on?" The elderly monk gave her a compassionate smile. "Akiko-san, pain is an inevitable part of life. But we must not let ourselves be overwhelmed by it. We must learn to accept it, to transform it into strength and compassion." Next to Akiko sat Taro, an elderly samurai marked by battle scars. "Master," he said in a hoarse voice, "I have lived a life of violence. My hands are stained with blood. How can I find inner peace?" Kimi nodded slowly. "Taro-san, the past cannot be changed, but we can learn from it. We can use our pain to cultivate compassion and wisdom." And finally, there was Kenzo, a middle-aged merchant tormented by anxiety and dissatisfaction. "Master," he said in a tense voice, "I feel lost without purpose. I have achieved material success, but my life is empty and full of problems. How can I find a new meaning for my existence?" Kimi looked at him kindly. "Kenzo-san, true happiness lies not in material possessions, but in inner peace and realizing our true potential. We must learn to listen to the voice of our heart and follow our true calling." "My dears," continued the monk, "I will now tell you the story of Hana, and you will see that each of you will understand how to achieve peace. Because this story teaches us that, even in the deepest darkness, even when dawn seems distant, a grain of salt can illuminate our path." Hana was a woman of rare beauty, Kimi said, but her life was marked by profound suffering. She had lost her husband, a valiant samurai, in a battle against a rival clan, and a few months later, as if that wasn't enough, her only child, a lively and intelligent child, was taken away by an incurable disease. Since then, his heart was enveloped in a cloud of pain so thick that it obscured all joy. Kimi described Hana's desperation and spoke of her abandoned garden, a symbol of her wounded soul. One day, he continued, while the woman was walking in the garden, a salty tear fell on a withered rose, and the rose miraculously came back to life. And Hannah understood that her tears, bitter as salt, also contained the power to heal and renew, Kimmy explained. He understood that pain was not an enemy to fight, but a teacher to listen to, an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth. So he began to take care of his garden, dedicating time every day to cultivate plants and meditate on the ephemeral nature of life. Little by little, her heart began to heal and hope began to bloom within her again, just like that garden that became more and more green and lush. Kimi stood up and invited the pilgrims to follow him. He led them to a small wooden pavilion, where in the center was a wooden bowl filled with salt. The salt sparkled like a myriad of tiny diamonds, reflecting the sunlight that filtered through the windows. You too, dear pilgrims, can practice this ritual, Kimmy said, taking a pinch of salt and offering it to the earth. Take a pinch of salt from this bowl and offer it to the earth, aware that pain is part of life, but that in it also lies the seed of healing and spiritual rebirth. Salt, continued Kimi, is a sacred element in many cultures. Consider that in ancient Egypt, it was used to preserve the bodies of the deceased, a symbol of eternity. In Hinduism, salt is offered to deities as a sign of purification and devotion. And in Christianity, Jesus said to his disciples, "You are the salt of the earth." Dear pilgrims, remember that salt is a symbol of strength, purity, and transformation. Just as salt melts ice, pain can melt our heart and open it to compassion. Just as salt preserves food, so pain can preserve our most precious memories. And as salt purifies water, so pain can purify our soul. While the pilgrims moved, followed their master's explanations with extreme attention, Kimi continued his lesson with enthusiasm. And he explained that the salt ritual is not only a symbolic act, but also a concrete experience that can lead to profound changes in the lives of each of us. Sprinkling salt on the earth helps us ground ourselves in the present, connect with nature, and recognize our interdependence with all living things, he said. It reminds us that we are part of a larger cycle, that life and death are two sides of the same coin, that we must live in the present without being led astray by the past and the future. Salt also has purifying and healing properties, Kimi continued. For example, spreading it on the earth can help neutralize negative energies and create a more harmonious and serene environment. Salt can also be used to purify the body and mind through salt baths, scrubs, or simply by adding it to the water we drink. Remember that the salt ritual I told you about invites us to take care of ourselves, to nourish our body and our soul. It reminds us that healing is a holistic process involving all aspects of our being. Through the salt ritual, we can find the strength to face life's challenges, overcome pain, and realize our full potential. Kimi, looking the pilgrims in the eyes, continued his speech with an invitation to reflection. My dears, bring the salt ritual into your daily life. Sprinkle salt on the earth every day with gratitude and awareness. Let this precious element guide you on your spiritual path towards inner peace and authentic happiness. But what does this story teach us? That the salt ritual is an endless journey, a continuous discovery of ourselves and the world around us. It is an invitation to live a more conscious, more authentic, more compassionate life. It is an invitation to look inside ourselves, to discover our true nature, to find inner peace and the meaning of existence. Remember, continued the monk before ending the lesson, that the salt ritual can be practiced in many different ways, depending on one's preferences and circumstances. Some prefer to sprinkle it on bare earth, others mix it with water to create a purifying solution, and still others burn it as incense. There are those who prefer to recite a prayer or mantra during the ritual, those who prefer to meditate in silence, and those who simply prefer to concentrate on their sensations. It doesn't matter how we practice it. The important thing is to do it with intention and awareness, because this powerful ritual is an act of love towards ourselves and towards the world around us. It is a way to honor the past, to live in the present, and to create a better future. Salt, with its practical and symbolic ability to conserve and purify, reminds us that we too can preserve our most precious memories and purify our soul from the waste of the past. Salt, with its strength and resilience, teaches us that even in the most difficult moments, we can find the strength to get up and move forward. Salt is a precious gift of nature, a symbol of life and hope. And through this ritual, we can rediscover our connection with the earth, with other living beings, and with the divine that resides in each of us. The pilgrims, moved by the words of the mentor to whom they had entrusted their spiritual journey, left the temple with hearts full of gratitude and hope. They had received a precious gift, a simple but powerful ritual that would accompany them for the rest of their lives. Akiko returned home and, as Kimi suggested, began practicing the salt ritual every morning.
She went to the garden that she once shared with her beloved and chose a special corner.
Then, with a pinch of salt between her fingers, she traced a circle around her favorite plant, a white camellia that her man had given her for their anniversary. And as she performed this gesture, she closed her eyes and imagined her husband next to her, feeling his comforting and loving presence. The salt ritual became for Akiko a moment of connection with her late husband, a way to keep his memory alive and to find the strength to move forward. Day after day, the pain eased, leaving room for gratitude for the time spent together and hope for a better future. Taro, the old samurai, decided to transform his house into a dojo, a place to teach young people martial arts and the values of discipline, respect, and compassion. Every morning, before starting lessons, he sprinkled a pinch of salt on the tatami as a symbol of purification and renewal. Salt, he told his students, is like our soul. It can be wounded, dirtied, but it can also be purified and healed. Through the practice of martial arts and the salt ritual, we can free ourselves from the impurities of the past and find our true inner strength. And his students, inspired by his wisdom and fortitude, followed him devotedly, learning not only to fight, but also to live an honorable and compassionate life. Kenzo, the merchant, decided to sell all his goods and use the proceeds to finance a trip to India in search of a spiritual master who could guide him on his inner journey. During his journey, he met many sages and ascetics, but none of them seemed able to answer his deepest questions. But one day, while walking along the Ganges River, he saw an old sadhu sitting under a banyan tree. The sadhu had his eyes closed and seemed immersed in deep meditation. Kenzo came over and sat next to him in silence. After a while, the sadhu opened his eyes and looked at Kenzo with a penetrating gaze. "What are you looking for, my son?" "Churches." Kenzo hesitated for a moment, then replied, "I'm looking for inner peace, authentic happiness. I have everything you could want, but I feel empty and dissatisfied." The sadhu smiled. "Happiness is not found in external things, my son," he said. "Happiness is an internal state, which arises from self-awareness and connection with the divine." Then he took a pinch of salt from his bowl and offered it to Kenzo. "This is the spice of life," he said. "It represents joy and pain, light and shadow, good and evil. Accept everything that life offers you without judgment, and you will find the peace you seek." Kenzo took the salt and tasted it. Its flavor, intense and pungent, reminded him of his childhood when he played on the beach and tasted the salty seawater. In that moment, he understood that happiness was not something to look for elsewhere, but something that had always been within him, like a grain of salt hidden in his heart. And so, as Hana found healing in her garden, as Akiko Taro and Kenzo found the strength to overcome their difficulties, so we too can find peace and serenity through the salt ritual. We can learn to transform pain into love, fear into courage, anger into compassion. We can discover that even in the deepest darkness, a grain of salt can illuminate our path.